The Candidates 2022 is over in Madrid, and we can focus on other chess events and chess tournaments and talk more about some events that actually had happened throughout the Candidates, but I didn't have a chance to talk about. And let me start by recording this video on about the bronze my French club, Clichy Echecs, took in the French team championship. So here we go. So, from June 9th to June 19th, 2022, in Chartres, which is a city quite close to Paris, the team championship, the French team championship took place, which was called Top 16, which means top 16, because of the number of the teams participated. There were two pools by 8 teams each, Pool A and Pool B, and the top 4 teams continued to the higher stage, and lower bottom of each group qualified to the lower stage. And well, yes, as it's been quite a few years, almost 7 years, I think I've been playing for Clichy Echecs club, and this time it was no exception. I also played for this club, and actually I already shared a few of my videos on my YouTube channel. The first one was called it's called Je parle français. It's a video of my interview in French that was recorded in Chartres after one of my won games. Actually, I played just 2 games in total in Chartres for the team, but I took 1.5 out of 2. And this is the interview about one of my games that you can check out on YouTube. And the other video I recorded was a blitz match against Axel DELORME, one of my teammates. Since we stayed with the team not in Chartres but in Maintenon. It's about 30 kilometers from Chartres by a very, very beautiful castle. I recorded this video from this castle, playing a few blitz games against Axel on the day where we didn't have to play, but our team went to Chartres to play. So in this video today, I'm going to show you 4 of the best games of my teammates, because I already shared my winning game in the previous videos. So today I'm going to focus on my teammates' performances. There were quite a few nice games that they played in Chartres, and I just would like to use this opportunity to present you my team and my teammates and their games. This is a photo of the whole team. Actually, there were quite a few players because some of them played in the qualification stage, some of them played throughout the whole event. It's not really the whole team because you cannot see Parham MAGHSOODLOO, who joined the team only for the 2 final games. But well, it's quite an interesting team, a mixture of cultures, and we had a great time together. which seems to be like the most important thing for the team, which I appreciate a lot. And yeah, let me also show you all the names of the team. So in the qualification stage, that is already like the final stage, and in pool B, in the qualification stage, in the group B, these are the players who took part in securing the qualification and getting to the final stage. You can see AMIN Bassem, Jorden van Foreest, Daniele VOCATURO, Tigran GHARAMIAN, Pavel TREGUBOV, Hicham HAMDOUCHI, who was the captain of the team, myself, Fabien LIBISZEWSKI, Axel DELORME, Ruben HARUTYUNYAN, Natacha BENMESBAH Natacha, AFRAOUI. So quite a few names. And then at the final pool out, these were the players who took part. And I also made the top Daniele VOCATURO, he scored 6.5 out of 9, and Pavel and Bassem, they scored 6.5 out of 10, while Hicham HAMDOUCHI and Jorden van Foreest took 5.5 out of 9, and of course I must mention Natacha, who played a very nice tournament, and she scored 5.5 out of 8. Anaelle, by the way, also scored 2.5 out of 3. So quite a few performances, and let's get back to chess and 4 games that I promised to show you. The first one is going to be a very short game, a very short victory by Natacha. Her opponent did not follow the advice to develop in the opening and was punished quite severely. So knight f3, 6 Sicilian, b3, Sicilian with b3. Quite a rare continuation, but nevertheless white plays this line. Bishop to d3, looking quite funny, this move, but at the same time, after knight c6 and castle, since this bishop is placed so funnily, black decided to attack this bishop immediately. And as we know, in an opening, one has to develop pieces. And sometimes we're just not ready for attack yet. And when we make a move with the piece that has already been developed, sometimes it just loses more time, and it cannot be suggested. So knight b4, attacking the bishop at one point from one side, of course, it's understandable, but it's not the move to be suggested. Here, black had to somehow develop something like this, and a very funny position with the knight going either to d5 or h5 could appear on the board, with complicated and approximately equal play. While after knight to b4, bishop c4, the question remains what to do with this knight later on, because white actually has some plans with attacking this knight and getting control over the center, which is also another very important thing to fight for in the opening. Because if, for example, black plays bishop b7 here, then this knight is gonna get attacked. It's gonna need to return, so it's the third move already by this piece. And then d4, and we see that white already achieved quite a few things in the center. So knight to b4 here was not a good decision. But black here made an even further mistake, d5. So they recalled that the center is very important, and they tried to fight for it. But unfortunately for black, the king is still in the center, and while white has already castled. So this e file can be used by this rook, and that's exactly what happened. After e takes d4, of course, the only move, the lesser evil, was to take on d5 with the knight, while after e takes d5, bishop b5 followed, and an opening catastrophe happened in the game. Bishop b5, bishop d7, queen e2. Bishop e7, another bad decision, but the position was already quite bad. Knight e5, attacking this bishop, and we can see that this knight on b4, after making this brave move knight b4, is struggling here. It's not coming back. And in case bishop takes b5 was the last move for black in this game, knight f6 would have been a little bit better, but after c3 capturing on d7 and knight c6, white's position is just too strong and black just too undeveloped. So it's a lost position for black anyway, but after bishop takes b5, queen takes b5 followed, and black resigned. Only 11 moves. Natacha required only 11 moves to win this game. And yeah, just an example of an opening catastrophe that should not happen if you develop your pieces. Let's carry on, and let me show you a nice victory by AMIN Bassem against a very strong grandmaster from Azerbaijan. Abbasov was playing black, and it was a long theoretical line in the Petrov opening. And actually, knight takes e5, d takes e5, bishop b4. Quite a modern approach, very concrete one. So white sacrifices the pawn temporarily, rook b1, controlling this square, so this bishop doesn't get back. And after short castle, white wins back the sacrificed pawn by a nice combination. But nevertheless, this position is about equal. This position is about equal. It was suggested in some of the chessable courses, as I've heard. Rook e8, h3, rook a6. Quite a nice maneuver. We're seeing many maneuvers like this. This maneuver also recalls me of the maneuver Jan used in his last game of the candidates in his game against Duda, rook a6, also in the Petrov. So quite a maneuver to remember, right? So rook a6, transferring the rook via the 6th rank. Rook b5 was played in the game. White attacks this pawn in order to provoke the c6 move, which closes the road for this rook to e6. Of course, rook b5 is not the only move here. Queen f3 is another interesting possibility with some lines like this. Rook f6 and then queen to g3, attacking the pawn and again trying to force this pawn to go forward. Bishop g5 is also a threat, so black needs to give up this pawn. And again, the position is very complex. It's about equal, but definitely queen f3 is a move to consider. Rook b5, c6, rook b3, a4, rook b4. Some interesting maneuvers by the white rook as well. And here black had to play a3 at some point, either after queen e7, attacking the pawn on e5, and if bishop f4, a3. It was very important to move away this pawn from the white square to blockade this pawn on the white square, so this bishop can attack it later on. Because in the game queen a5 was played, which is still okay, bishop e3, and here again a3 was a crucial move to make. a3, and then if white plays bishop d4, c5, the move that black actually played in the game, exchanging these pawns. But the difference between this pawn being on e3 and on a4 is just amazing, because if we get back to the game, c5 was played immediately, the pawns got exchanged, and white played a3. They had a chance to stop this pawn on a4, thus almost forcing either this rook or this bishop take care of this pawn forever. While on a3, it would have been better placed. Rook c6, bishop d4, rook g5, bishop e3, rook e5, c3, protecting this pawn like this. So in case of rook takes c3, bishop d4 with double attack will follow. Rook h5 seems to be quite a serious mistake. Rook e4 needed to be played with the idea after rook takes d5, rook takes b4, c takes b4. Yes, black is a pawn down for the moment, but since we have the opposite colored bishops, and since black has some counter possibilities to counterattack, it might be holdable. This position might be holdable. While after rook h5, suddenly bishop d4 followed, cutting off this rook from this square, taking control over e5 square, and suddenly the position started to look very, very dangerous, because this pawn is hanging. Rook g6 was played trying to create a counterattack, but after king h2, unpinning the pawn on g2, rook h g5 g4, these two rooks, they're doing nothing actually, and it's very hard to bring them back to play. If f5, for example, black tries to open up the g file, f4 follows, and this rook is trapped. Black tried to save the pawn and bring both rooks to play, but it's just too late, because white is taking control over the e file, rook e1, king h7, rook e8, and suddenly the position just lost. So we say, that's why we often say one piece stands badly, the whole game stands badly. That's why it's so important to keep your pieces on good lines, on good squares. Yeah, and that's how this game ended, because this black just resigned, because this pawn is about to be lost, and then the king is very, very weak. So let's get going. One more game of one of my teammates that I want to share with you is a victory by Jorden van Foreest against Estonian Grandmaster Kulauts. It was a modern Stanin's defense, d4, knight f6, and here white opted for bishop takes c6, which I don't really like. I prefer, when I play this position myself, I prefer the moves such as c3 or d5, because after bishop takes c6, it would have been a good move, only if it would win this pawn. But in fact, this pawn, white is not winning this pawn, because black can just exchange, and then the e4 pawn is also in danger. So it's gonna be some exchanges, and black holds, despite the fact that the king is in the center. White cannot get something significant out of this advantage development. But after rook e1, well, white exchanged his bishop, which seemed to be for the knight, and it doesn't seem to be as a very good exchange. Okay, nevertheless, the position remained about equal. We see that white tried to improve his position, bringing his queen to f3, exchanging, almost forcing black to exchange his light squared bishop to the knight. And here black started to play very interestingly. First, he played c6, taking care of this square and giving more space to his pieces. Rook a to d1, queen c7, and now white had to play bishop g5, not letting black regroup his pieces as he did in the game by bishop f8 and rook e6. And if black plays h6, then white can play bishop f4, because immediately bishop f4 would have been a nice move. Bishop f4 is possible, but g6 we have to consider with the pawn on h6, just the pawn is hanging here, and it seems that the queen is trapped, but in fact queen c5 is possible. But with the inclusion of bishop g5, h6, bishop f4, it's even stronger. g6, queen c5, this pawn is going to be weak. But it was quite a difficult maneuver. The problem is that if white tries to play bishop h4, it's also possible. Bishop h4, bishop g5, bishop h4, it's definitely better than what happened in the game. In the game, white played knight e2, bishop f8, and here he decided to put the knight on g3. And at some point, white, could not stop black from playing d5. And after black played d5, well, all black's problems are far away. The position is already even a little bit more pleasant for black. Black is pushing, but it should be, I mean, about equal. And here, even it's amazing how fast white lost this seemingly equal position. Knight e4 looked as a very nice move, trying to get the knight closer to the center to f3. Something like this could have happened. And again, about equal, although black can try to attack, but at the same time, black's king is quite weak, and these squares are weakened, so black has to be careful as well. Knight e4 seemed as a very nice possibility. Instead, white played queen to d3, and it seems to be quite inaccurate, because after knight b4, white gave up his dark squared bishop. Bishop e7, c3, queen c7, and here again, f5 is coming up, the position is open, the bishop is a little bit stronger than this knight, but it seems that white can survive. Nothing really significant. Yes, the position is quite passive, but still the equal number of pieces, of pawns, and the king is quite weak. But instead, white played queen to d4, f5, knight d2, and that was a decisive mistake, because suddenly this knight gets pinned after bishop f6, queen d3, rook d6, and this pin is very, very unpleasant, and there is no way for white to get out of this pin, because after king f1, rook d3 follows, attacking the pawn on c3, c4, queen d6, and well, either you step to e2 and have your king in the center of the board, or you try to suffer without this move, but then just bishop c3 is coming up. And again, it's not clear how white can unpin himself. And of course, queen e2, the move queen a2 didn't help at all. I mean, king e1 or king e2 had to be played, but here it's just too late because this pawn is hanging. So a very nice positional victory by Jorden. It's even, I mean, no tactical sacrifices, but nevertheless, little by little, white was giving away some part of his advantage at first, and then some inaccuracies, and yeah, he ended up under a very unpleasant pin and lost the game. And the final games that I want to share with you is a game by the captain's team, Hicham HAMDOUCHI. He was playing black. It was the final, the crucial round for the bronze medals. We had to win in order to get bronze. And Hicham won against a very strong French grandmaster, Romain Edouard, and it's quite impressive how black's position got so much better, again, without big mistakes from the white side. So let's have a look. g3 was played here. White opted for quite a rare setup. And, well, black did some normal Sicilian moves. Bishop, developing bishop, preparing b5, and white tried to create counter-attack on the king side. But somehow, bishop c8, I like this move very much, transferring the bishop to the long diagonal. Somehow white did spend too much time and didn't get what they wanted to get. f4 was the way to continue the game, and then trying to play g5 and f5 immediately without some preparational moves, because after knight g3, as he did in the game, bishop b7, f4, knight a5, white made one more move, king h1, which seems to be already quite a waste of time. Again, g5, knight d7, f5, all in had to be played with some counter chances, although black can even castle alongside, and it's not so clear if white actually achieved something significant, since black's king is still in the center, it's not on the king side, and that means that yeah, white keeps attacking, but there is no target, not the main target that the attack is going against usually. But after king h1, h6, a very nice quiet move was made by black, and white didn't find the right direction and how to proceed correctly, because it's every move seems just to make his position worse. After knight c2 e2, for example, h5 followed, and actually d5 was also the move to consider, with the idea to play knight e4, but h5 is also quite strong, g5 and h4. Suddenly, after g takes f6, bishop takes f6, this knight is trapped. It's under attack. White has an extra piece for the moment, but the position is almost lost. e5, white tried to complicate the position, but in fact it just worsens it. Black could have taken on g2, play with the piece down, but the compensation is, well, it's almost winning, because this move, this knight cannot be supported. There is a pin coming up. This knight is going to be lost. The king is exposed, and well, huge advantage for black. Instead, black decided to take on g3, which is also pretty strong, because after e takes f6, black has a very nice move, very strong one, and a very nice move, not taking this pawn, but taking that pawn, using the fact that this bishop is pinned. And we remember that black spent a few moves getting this bishop to b7, and it was worth it. So rook takes h3, king g1, rook h2, getting closer to the king. The only move here for white not to lose immediately was the move rook f3. Instead, white made rook f2, quite creative way to protect himself, but unfortunately it's not enough. Rook takes g2 could have finished the game a little bit sooner than in the game, because after king h1 here, either king d7 or longside castle threatening to bring the rook to h8 is very strong, and after f takes g7, rook g8, and then rook g7, rook h7, or queen f2, there are some strong ideas. Instead, in the game, black played queen to c5, which is not as strong as rook takes g2, but still quite good. Knight d4, rook takes g2, rook takes g2, queen d5, and here, well, white position is very tough. It's always tough to protect against direct threats. However, the only move was queen to d2. It's very hard to make such moves because the queen gets under knight c4, and I understand that probably white just didn't see what to do after knight c4. In fact, there is a possibility to play knight takes c6 with the idea to give a fork after knight takes d2. It's easy to miss, and it's quite understandable that white didn't see this possibility. They played queen e2, but queen e2 just loses the game because black captures the knight and then the pawn on f6, and they make this very nice alongside castle. And yes, they're an exchange down, but they have two pawns for this exchange. The rook is coming up to the h file soon, the bishop is very strong, and knight is going to get to c4, making this position almost undefendable for white. And let's see how the game continued. Just a few more moves. g5, very strong move, opening up all the lines and preparing this rook h8 move, which was the final move of the game. White resigned, Hicham HAMDOUCHI won, and that's how the tournament ended for my team. We took bronze, and it was a nice event. And again, I'm very happy that I have a chance to share a few games of my teammates with you. And in the next videos, I'm going to talk about Top 12 Féminin, where I also played for Clichy Echecs. That event took place a week after Top 16 in Paris, and also since I had to cover the candidates and record recaps, I didn't have a chance to share my games that I played in this final weekend of the women's team French championship with you, but I will definitely do it in the upcoming videos, so stay tuned. please, please, please don't forget to press like, because it is very, very important for my YouTube channel to keep growing and for this video to get more views. And with that in mind, I finished this recording, and since I'm recording it live on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ChessQueen, I'm starting to play Title Tuesday in 5 minutes. So hopefully I'll see you on Tuesdays on my Twitch. So take care, play chess, and I said see you soon.